Muhammad Umar Farooq biological video. Please make sure to subscribe, like and share. Ask the question for answer and comment about the artwork. You can also answer question to each other for solving the problem. So here we will discuss about the skin anatomy and physiology. And some we will also discuss about the immunology on the skin as a barrier immunity. So next here let's we will talk about the skin. That is, the skin is the largest tissue in our body, which that is also known as the organ because it play a function. So here the cross section of the skin, which contain many layers. So here we will discuss about the here is the artery and vein are present in the adipose tissue, which that is present is a subcutaneous tissue. Subcutaneous means that is the basically a cuticle to subcutaneous and contain a lymphatic vessels. So this lymphatic vessel is play important role as a immunity to provide the immune cells. So here we will let's talk about that is the here is the structure which that is looking like this. It is known as the epidermis because it is the above of all dermis, above the dermis. So that is epidermis. Epidermis contain a many function which that is used as a barrier immunity. We will discuss. So here is the hair follicle are present inside. So this hair follicle, beside the hair follicle, that is known as the oil gland. So this oil gland is the globule-like structure which produce the oil, is known as the sebum or oil, which is the antimicrobial or anti-microorganism. So it's play important function as a barrier immunity. So here is the blood vessel, which that artery and vein provide the nourishment to the hair follicle to grow and to produce a hair shaft or produce a hair, and that is the living. But on the other hand, the black color shows that the hair shaft is the dead, contain a melanin pigment, is known as the melanin globule. Or basically next we will discuss about the basically melanosome are present. So here is the subcutaneous and upper is the subepidermis. Epidermis contain, here is the hair shaft and that is the layer which contain a sebaceous gland. So that's here is the artery and vein which that give the nourishment to the epidermis. So this nourishment to live young and make a collagen, and this collagen are present in the epidermis to deposition of collagen to live healthy and young skin. Okay, here is the oil which produce. So on the other hand, here is looking like that is the sweat gland. So the sweat gland is made up of basically sweat, which made up of salt and water, and this secrete outside for the during the thermogenesis, when the cooling down of the thermoregulation for cooling the cooling mechanism to evaporate heat and water for maintenance. It's known as the sweat gland. So that is used for the homeostasis of the thermoregulation. So adipose tissue is here, which is made up of the adipocyte. So the adipocyte is the special characters to store the fat. So important to note that first of all we will discuss about here is the nerves which that arise from the adipose tissue. It is here is a Pacini corpuscles. It is also pressure used for the pressure of the skin. But here is a Meissner corpuscle which that is used as a touch. But here is a nerve. And on the other hand, the beside the hair that is with the oil gland, that is the rectus muscle. So here is the red color shows that the rectus muscle which that is attached with the skin epidermis. So that special character is the interconnected with the neuron, with the motor neuron, to autonomic nervous system or involuntary nervous system to create a goosebump. So important to know that is the rectus muscle. And here is the free nerve ending is present, which that is used for the pain. So the pain is detected by the free nerve ending as a pain. So this is all overview of the skin anatomical structure and their little bit function. But next here I can draw another diagram to understand with with easy to understand. So easy to understand, here we will discuss that is I am drawing the simple diagram of the skin cross section. This contain a epidermis. So the epidermis basically contain a different layers, and these different layers we will talk here. So this is the upper layer is contain a barrier immunity. Next we will discuss. So here is the artery and vein and lymphatic duct are present, which are used for the immune response from the outer epidermis rupturing or something else, a burning effect. So that's important. So here is the basically here is the stratum corneum, which that is the component of epidermis, and stratum lucidum, stratum granulosum, stratum spinosum, and stratum basal. So that is the basically five part of the epidermis, which that contain a epidermis. There are different layers. So different layers, here we will discuss the whole function. So first of all, I want to try to explain the other part of the skin. So here is the papillary and basically other component of the epidermis with the explanation. So here is the dermis. So the dermis contain a papillary region and reticular region. So the papillary region contain a sebaceous gland and sebaceous gland, hair follicle, etc., etc. But in the reticular region contain a net-like structure of the vein and artery. So that's the dermis. And on the other hand, below the dermis is a subcutaneous fatty tissue. So the subcutaneous fatty tissue, it means the subcutaneous, the cuticle is the upper part. So that is, here is the subcutaneous, which is made up of adipocyte. So remember that the yellow color is showing that the adipocyte. So the upper part is the antibacterial protein are present in the upper surface of the skin, which that is used, and that is basically there are many mutualistic bacteria which that is play important role as a symbiosis and the mutualism to play to helpful bacteria. That is a many bacteria is play important role. That is the microbiota on our skin. So that's microbiota is also prevent to invaginate the pathogen. On the other hand, that is important. So here we will discuss about that. So the antibacterial protein, acids and water, that is basically dehydrated skin, is also helpful for prevention of the pathogen. So that is the barrier immunity. So here is the epidermis. So let's talk about the epidermis contain a different layers and what was the different layer are here. So that here is the basically dermis. So this dermis is upper side is the epidermis. So the epidermis contain a different layers. But the dermis is contained basically, that's here is the sensory neuron, which that is attached with the light touch, that is a mechanoreceptor cell. It is also known as a Erkel cell or Merkel cell, which that is basically important. And here is the melanocyte contain a melanosome. So the mechanoreceptor cell are used for the touch. So the light touch is detectable due to the this mechanoreceptor cells, and that is attached with the sensory neuron. But here is the melanocyte contain melanosome. So the melanosome, quantity of melanosome is depend on the dark or light dark skin. And this basically let's talk about. And here is the stratum basal and upper side is the stratum spinosum. So the stratum spinosum contain a keratinocyte. So this keratinocyte is important structure to produce, that is the prokeratinocyte. To produce upper side is the stratum granulosum. To grain-like structure of the cell is known as the lamellar granules. So these lamellar granules is the mature 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 cell of the keratin. So the keratin containing mature cell. So what is the meaning? That is why, that is the prevention of the pathogen due to the keratinocytes are present, which that is the keratin protein containing cell. Here is the keratinocyte, prokeratinocyte, and upper is the lamellar granules will be formed by the proliferation of the keratinocyte. And these keratinocyte, inner side basically is the stem cell. Keratinocyte, inner side is the red color shows that the stem cell. So the stem cell produce keratinocyte, prokeratinocyte, keratinocyte, and these keratinocyte convert into the lamellar granules. And these lamellar granules are present in the stratum granulosum, and stratum lucidum are present is also, which that is a thin layer contain a cell, which that is the dead cell filled with the keratin. So the composition of the dead cell with the filled with the keratin are present, and that is the dead. It means this dead cell is continuously shedding. So this shed of the dead cell with keratin containing dead cell is rupturing and to release. So what will be happen? So the here is the stratum corneum. So the stratum corneum is the upper part of the dead skin cell, which is the filled with the keratin, is that is shedding continuously. And inside the stem cell produce proliferation to produce keratinocyte, and keratinocyte convert into the lamellar granules, and this lamellar granule is produced again that cell filled with the keratin. So this means it is continuously growth of the skin to maintain the skin due to the deposition of collagen. So the lamellar granules is deposit the collagen to basically fill the collagen to turgid the skin to also provide the rigidity as a young person. So here the melanocytes contain a melanosome. So the melanosome frequency or melanosome depend to the dark or light skin. If too much low melanocyte, that means the light exposure is less, and if high light exposure to produce melanosomes increase. So the increasing of the melanosome is, that is why. Okay, next here we will discuss about the rupturing of the barrier immunity. Barrier immunity. Barrier immunity mean the upper skin contain a layer which that is prevent to incoming of the pathogen, inflow of the pathogen. So that is why it is known as the barrier immunity. So these barrier immunities contain basically different layers. To understand this, I am drawing again, that is the barrier immunity, epidermis, dermis, etc. So here is the pathogen which that are present whenever the rupturing of the rupturing of the epidermis to inflow of the bacteria. So the inflow of the bacteria is the keratinocyte will be received, that is the pathogen receptor are present. So this pathogen, here is the barrier immunity. So the recognition of the pathogen to increase the inflammatory mediator. So this inflammatory mediator which that is stimulate the Langerhans cell, which that is also present in the epidermis. So this Langerhans cell which that is basically Langerhans cell which that is recognize the inflammatory mediator, and that is inside imagination of the, here is the melanocyte in the blue color, and the other cell is the keratinocyte. So remember, that is basically, here is the small finger like projection which that's inward toward the dermis to recognize the dendritic dermal cell. So this dendritic dermal cell contain a MHC class 1 receptor. So this MHC class 1 receptor receives the signal from the inflammatory mediator. So this inflammatory mediator, which that is the dendritic dermal cell, which give the response and to produce the chemokines and inflammatory response to basically it's go into the lymphatic vessel first of all. So that dendritic dermal cells go into the lymphatic vessel. So important to know that. So I am again explaining that a dendritic dermal cell which receive the signal from the Langerhans cells to by the MHC1 class, and this recognition to move the dendritic cell into the lymphatic system in the lymphatic node, lymph node, and that's recognition by the naive T cell. So here is the dermis. This inflammatory mediator can be interleukin 1, beta, interleukin 6, interleukin 18, and TNF. That is the inflammatory mediator, which that means it stimulates the innate immunity. Innate immunity means that's a quick response by the activation of macrophage and natural killer cell, which that macrophage engulf the pathogen and natural killer cell will be cell lysis and without any helper cell. So the natural killer cell basically kill the pathogen. Basically pathogen is a prokaryote. So this prokaryote killed by the natural killer cell without any using any helper cell. So that is the important character is that without any cell to use for killing. So that is independent. So the macrophage is the basically also independent, which that is give the response by the inflammatory mediator. So here is the dendritic dermal cell, which that's go into the lymphatic system for activate the adaptive immunity. That was the innate immunity, which that is during the birth time activate. So here is the innate immunity. Adaptive immunity is here, which that dendritic cell move into the lymphatic vessel, lymphatic and go into the lymph node, and the naive T cell, which that is bind with the dendritic cell to recognize the inflammatory response, and that's related to the pathogen, which that is adapt, and that's adaptive immune response give the adaptive immune response to produce or proliferation of the naive T cell to convert CD4 and CD8 T cell. And this CD4 and CD8 T cell is also produce the B cell, which that is also activated by the pro B cell, which that is produce the antibody or specific antibody by the plasma cell, production of plasma cell into the blood for when go into the pathogen into the blood vessel. So CD4 and CD8 T cell, which that is pro-inflammatory cytokines, which that stimulate and the dendritic cell recognize the naive T cell to produce that things. For example, CD4 and CD8 receptor containing T cell, and this also go, and that is basically proliferate, and it's recognized by the macrophage. What is the meaning of this? CD4 attached with the macrophage to recognize what is this, and that will be recognized to stimulate the B cell, and B cell ultimately convert into the plasma cell and plasma cell and B memory cell. Plasma cell produce in the quick response to produce antibody, but the B memory cell is safe and remember the antigen to produce antibody again when infection will be again caused. So that is different causes of the skin, which that is prevented by the barrier immunity, innate immunity, and adaptive immunity, which that is all work to each other. And remember that barrier immunity is the upper part of the epidermis, while innate immunity is the dermis part, and And on the other hand, that is the adaptive immunity is occur during the pathogen invaginate into the blood vessel. So remember about that things. When invagination of the pathogen into the blood, that will be the creation of antibody produced against the antigen to recognize and kill by the macrophage and neutrophil, while in the case of memory T cell is produce the antibody again when infection cause. So that different infection can cause, and the cell division will be occur of the memory T cell as well as the effector T cell. On the other hand, important to know that plasma cell will produce and there's quick response to give a different type of antibody. For example, the specific pathogen use the antibody for the specific.